The vast and frigid realm of the Old Kings of Winter, the Starks of Winterfell, is generally considered the first and the oldest of the Seven Kingdoms, owing to its relatively early unification. It has endured thousands of years and unconquered for the longest of the Seven Kingdoms. The variance of its geography and history sets the north apart from the southern neighbours greatly. It is often said that the north is as large as the other 6 kingdoms put together, but the truth is somewhat less grand. The north, as ruled today by House Stark of Winterfell, comprises little more than a third of the realm. Beginning at the southern edge of the neck, the domains of the Starks extend as far north as the New Gift, which itself was part of the realm until King Jaehaerys convinced Winterfell to cede those lands to the Night's Watch. Within the north are great forests, windswept plains, hills and valleys, rocky shores and snow-crowned mountains. The north is a cold land, much of it rising moorland and high plains, giving way to mountains in its northern reaches, and this makes it far less fertile than the lands to the south. Snow has been known to fall there even in the summer, and it is deadly in the winter. White Harbour, the North's sole true city, is the smallest city in the Seven Kingdoms. The most prominent towns in the north are the Winter Towns, beneath the walls of Winterfell, and Barrowtown in the Barrowlands. The former is largely empty in spring and summer, but filled to bursting in autumn and winter, with those seeking the protection and patronage of Winterfell to help them survive the lean times. Not only do townsmen arrive from outlying villages and crofts, but many a son and daughter of the mountain clans have been known to make their way to the winter town when the snows began to fall in earnest. Barrowtown too is somewhat of a curiosity, gathering place built at the foot of a reputed barrow of the first king, who once ruled supreme over all the first men if legends are to be believed. Rising from the midst of a wild and empty plain, it has prospered thanks to the shrewd stewardship of the Dustins, loyal bannermen to the Starks, who have ruled the Barrowlands in their name since the fall of the last Barrow Kings. The rusted crown upon the arms of House Dustin derives from their claim that they themselves descended from the first king and the Barrow Kings who ruled after him. The old tales claim that a curse was placed on the Great Barrow that would allow no living man to rival the first king. The curse made these pretenders to the title grow corpse-like in their appearance, as it sucked away their virility and life. This, however, is no more than a legend, to be sure. The idea that the Dustins share blood and descent from the Barrow Kings of old seems sure enough. The men of the north are descendants of the first men, their blood only slowly mingling with that of the Andals who overwhelmed the kingdoms to the south. The original language of the first men, known as Old Tongue, has come to be spoken only by wildlings beyond the wall. Many of the other aspects of their culture have faded away, such as the grislier aspects of their worship, where criminals and traitors were killed and their bodies and entrails hung from the branches of weirwood trees. In the north, they tell the tale of the Rat Cook, who served an Andal king identified by some as King Tywell Lannister, the flesh of the king's own son, baked into a pie. For this he was punished by being turned into a monstrous rat that ate his own young. Yet the punishment was incurred not for killing the king's son or feeding him to the king, but for the breaking of guest rights, an important part of First Men culture. But the Northmen still retain some of their old ways in their customs and their manners. Their life is harder, and so they are hardened by it, and the pleasures that the South would consider noble are thought childish and less worthy than hunting and brawling that the Northmen love best. Even their house names mark them out, for the first men bore names that were short and blunt and to the point. Names like Stark, Wool, Umber, Stout, all stem from the days when the Andal kings had no influence on the north. One notable custom the Northmen hold dearer than any other is guest rights, the tradition of hospitality by which a man may offer no harm to a guest beneath his roof, nor a guest to his host. The Andals held something like it as well, but it looms less large in southern minds. In his text, Justice and Injustice in the North, Judgment of Three Stark Lords, Maester Egbert notes that crimes in the north in which guest rights were violated were rare, but were invariably treated harshly and seen as the worst of treasons. Only kinslaying is deemed as sinful as the violation of these laws of hospitality. As knighthood is rare in the north, the knightly tourney and its pageantry and chivalry are rare beyond the neck. Northmen fight a horse with war lances, but seldom tilt for sport, preferring melee that are only just this side of battles. There are accounts of contests that have lasted half a day and left fields trampled and villages half torn down. Serious injuries are common in such melee, and deaths are not unheard of. In the Great Melee at last half in 170 AC, said that no fewer than 18 men died, and half that number again were sorely maimed before the day was done. If one thing can be said about the North and its people, is that along with Dawn in the far south, they are one of the most unique and different kingdoms culturally in Westeros, retaining much of their rich histories and traditions that others have lost with the coming of the Andals.